All right, welcome, friends. This is Ian McKenzie here, host, founder, creator, producer of the Mythic Masculine podcast. And this conversation is part of the sort of nimble offshoot of my main podcast. I call this one the Crow's Nest, which are meant to be sort of topical, nimble conversations with guests around contemporary themes, news of the day, and in particular, events and gatherings that are upcoming and nigh. And so, in particular, this conversation is in support of the upcoming Cascadia Men's Conference, which I am one of the co-stewards alongside Trevor Mervin. And this will be the first time we're gathering together in this way with this size of men. And so I'm a little nervous and excited and grateful to hold a series of conversations with some of our facilitators and presenters along the journey to the conference, which is August 6th to 9th. As of this recording, actually just over a week away, which is pretty wild to think. But we're almost there. Tickets are still available for men who want to join. And I'm joined now by Aaron Robinson, who is coming to bring some morning movement, meditation, somatic practice, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I wanted to first welcome Aaron to this conversation. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ian.
And just so the listener gets a little bit more of you and the medicine you bring, you are a somatic breathwork practitioner, mindfulness
Mhm.
facilitator, and you have a podcast occasionally, it sounds like, as well, devoted to helping people. I know how that goes. There's ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
Helping people remember their innate wholeness. And generally, you're holding transformational spaces for healing and growth in all sorts of places. And so delighted to have you join us at the upcoming conference.
yeah, it's an honor, and just the invitation. Um, it feels like it's the right time where each of us has these unique gifts and the stage in which to bring it forth just kind of presents itself on the path, and we all have a choice. We either run away in fear or we move into it with fear. And yeah, so I'm just honored to be in familiar company and like a place where I can learn.
Mm. Well, thank you. And I'm curious now. So, when you first heard about it and maybe checked out the website and started to tune a bit, what was compelling to you about this gathering?
Yeah, I think the whole mythopoetic lens is something that has kind of been on the outskirts of my own practice because anything that's like somatic related is like in the present moment, what are you noticing? So my main focus has always been like this psyche somatic relationship that is in the present moment and ongoing. Sure, there's rumination where our bodies are kind of stuck in the past and responding from past experiences. But once you kind of like navigate these triggers that keep coming up over and over that are educating us about like how we're being contracted and held in this state. Once we have some like spaciousness and just general somatic safety, there's this curiosity that kind of still like is there. It's like, all right, well, uh, that feels like it's semi-resolved. Like, sure, I still have fear. Sure, I still get dysregulated, but I have tools now. But the path has always been something that I've devoted myself to as far as just like awakening, for less lack of a better term. And the mythopoetic lens feels like the most underexplored, yet there's this intuitive knowing that it's like, oh, like I'm playing out like 15 stories at the same time that I have yet to fully immerse myself in. So I think just being around people like yourself and others that are going to be at this conference that hold these stories as uh, an active practice or an active education seems like it's going to just open up a dimension of self-awareness that has yet to be fully embodied or explored.
Mm, thank you for that. Now, I'm curious as well. What's have you been to a gathering like this with just men, or what is your experience
Yeah,
with
yeah.
men's
I went
conferences?
to I went to Manifest Gathering last year. I
Nice.
just looked that you had a podcast with Ben. Um, from that. And then last year I went to two other men's gatherings in Asheville, North Carolina, Heart of Men retreat. So last year was like my men's work
Nice.
initiation. It was just like it was too much men's work. I was like, all right, y'all, like I'm good. I'm like, where are the women at?
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes, yeah, you got to find the right balance. Sometimes it's diving deep. Sometimes it's, stepping back. And I'm curious for you though, what did you find was surprising, valuable, edgy about being in these kinds of
hmm
spaces?
Yeah, I think it's just the spectrum of masculinity is the thing that kind of is the most apparent, like especially at a manifest gathering when we were at year two, so there's about like 300 men there. And there's always kind of like the center of the circle where like the most visible men are kind of holding that space, whether that's the people that are holding these communal ceremony music experiences or that are taking up space speaking. Um, and throughout the 3 or 4 days there seemed to be like kind of like the common theme of visibility in the center of the circle. And then as the experience went along, it wasn't till the very last day that I saw certain men kind of edge closer towards the center of the circle. They're
Mm,
around in the sphere, but like they didn't really make themselves known to the larger whole until much later on. And I'm like, where were these guys like day one, two, and three, like completely invisible, finding their own safety, finding their own place within the constellation of men. But yet they're all a part of the circle, regardless of how visible they were to me or to anybody else. So that was something that was the thing that I left with. I was like, oh wait, like we can hide in plain sight, but we could also be visible, and all of those things. Uh, like that can all be. There's masculinity in all of those things. There's not
mm,
one brand per se.
mm. I appreciate that. What comes to me is Sophie Strand, who's a colleague and poet and writer. She speaks about how we need a polyphony of masculinities
Mm,
to better display or represent, again, like the facets of masculinity rather than some monolithic version that, again, many of us in the dominant culture, over culture are conditioned into, and to think it's
hmm
just one way. And so by experiencing, or I think by gathering in this way, in the right way, it can allow actually a lot of the subtle, the nuances, right, of masculinity to come
hmm
forward. And I also want to name, I think that hesitation often for men, and I know for me, when I first started gathering with men, and particularly larger gatherings, I mean, it can be intimidating, of course, because we have a lot of baggage, right, with men,
Yeah.
competition, envy, jealousy, projection, golden shadow. I mean, threat of violence, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can come up, and I'm curious for you, what is it around the need to tend the somatic layer, or how does maybe the somatic layer relate to, the mental cognitive side of things? Because we can think our way differently, right? Of course, but if it doesn't land in the body, yeah, how does that relate?
Yeah, I feel like it's the first thing that lands, like it's the first experience is like, am I safe? Am I not safe? That predates any sort of projection that you have on another. Um, in establishing a rapport or relationship to these sensations instead of projecting it onto the people that are closest to us, because it's like, all right, like there's certain like men's gatherings for me a lot of the times are cringe. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I do not want to see all these dirty feet and like this hippy dippy bull stuff. Like, and I've looked into it deeper within myself, like in instances where I'm fearful of expressing like my joy or being perceived as not cool or whatever the thing is. And it's easy to once I create a relationship of like the resistance, then it's like, okay, like what is this coming from? Oh, like the fear of being seen. Because anytime that I felt like I've been seen in the past, I've been attacked for expressing my truth, or if I've been vulnerable and willing to kind of uh, stand for something, like the collective will punish me for being inconvenient. So. there's all these different layers that our bodies are communicating with us, and especially when we're in a larger group, there's probably an amplified number of reasons that our bodies are responding in a particular way. When it's a smaller group, we can kind of delineate that it's like, oh, okay, there's like maybe a couple of things, but then when there's like 100 dudes around, it's like it's it's like an alarm system's going off, and I think there's a lot of beauty in feeling scared at the magnitude of the space, to find that, especially when you can find that other men have the capacity to hold the anxiety that you may have in that space. I know that I feel very uncomfortable in a lot of those spaces, especially like being one of very few melanated men in those spaces. There's a lot more that I have to kind of meet within myself by not having a bunch of people that look like me in the space where there's an implied sense of belonging. There's not an implied sense of belonging in a lot of conscious growth spaces. But
Mhm.
it's always the grounds of the education of present moment, somatic response, somatic awareness. And as long as there's like a level of compassion, in allowing this process to kind of unfold over time, because it's a story that's constantly being reassessed and unraveled in real time. And these moments of heightened excitement or connection show us where we're really at. So then when we're back in
Mhm.
our maybe a hermit mode, like it's like, all right, these things are here. Like let's get a little bit more curious. And then the world is the stage in which we get to see what how much we've grown over time.
Mhm. There's many layers there, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And and a couple I want to pull on are one is the experience of being in a space like this. So for any man who are listening who maybe a bit edgy or curious, like whoa, that sounds like a lot, or that could be just yeah tense to navigate. There and also there's the content itself. I mean the keynote speak offerings, the workshops that there's going to be available. There's going to be ways to work with what's coming up, and I might call
Mm,
that the in some ways like the I don't know the content layer for lack of a better term. But then again, there's the somatic layer. And I think I mean, any kind of gathering and just in life, I mean, it's very easy to, if one isn't constantly like attuning or alchemizing the energies, right, or the tensions, the stirrings that come up, that can sort of build into a greater sense of dissonance,
mm,
or just like inability to be present, right? And so I feel that's one of the reasons why we've invited you to come, of course, to be able to offer in the mornings throughout our time together, the way of working with, the way of grounding, the way of integrating or alchemizing, what's coming up in a journey like this. And so I'd
mm.
love to actually to hear a little bit more about that and why you feel it's important for this kind of offering to be at a gathering like this, and particularly for men who can often get stuck mentally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like it's going to be really important, especially in a container like this, because I feel like the mythopoetic space is pretty heady, as far as just navigating the psyche and all the different quadrants that have trapdoors into like greater landscapes that kind of just goes on and on and on and on through the course of humanity. So just simply like landing inside of the body and using the breath, moving the body, bringing our awareness into the body, because these myths don't live in just the head, like they live inside of the body as well. And I think there's a huge opportunity just as men, as society kind of awakens into greater awareness. It's not just this aha third eye pineal like non-physical space, but it's like deeply physical, and there's a lot of spaciousness that we can inhabit with our awareness, like whether that's like in the legs or the bottom of the feet, the calves, like there's room for consciousness to expand. And I think that's like a personal kind of curiosity of my own of like how do we awaken on a full body level. But on a practical terms, just for us to be together and just to be, is a practice that I feel like is the most simple thing in a lot of senses of like, hey, there's no goal here other than to soften into this moment and like there's like a natural, deeper sense of safety, or I like to call like a deeper seat that is available if we just kind of shuffle around a little bit in our awareness and letting go of this expectation or anxiety or judgment for a day that we can kind of settle back into that is the homeostasis, that is the vantage point that feels like the most us. So each morning is going to be a practice in settling into the most authentic, real part of us. And usually it has to do with removing something, removing any sort of tension, removing any sort of judgment, or just reaching into ourselves deeper through the vehicle of breath or movement. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's an uncovering that doesn't necessarily follow like this linear like you're gonna get somewhere. It's like let's get nowhere or let's get closer to just raw, essential aliveness.
Mm. Thank you. You bring up as well. I mean, my sense of tracking these kinds of gatherings, not just men's gatherings, but multi-day gatherings of a sort that utilizes different ways of being together, different ingredients, in particular ritual as well, aspects
Mm,
of ritual. And I really see these as there are ceremonies in a way, right? There's ceremonial
absolutely.
gatherings, and there is this dance between structure and flow, you could call it. And we have myself and my co-producer. We have a certain structure clearly that we there's a schedule and everything, but also there's a tracking and attunement to like what's the mysterious other that is weaving itself among us and that
Hmm.
can't be planned for. And I think so much of that ability to perceive that other intelligence, some might call it eros, or again life's intelligence. For me, I've come to really understand and appreciate those that can bring about that attunement in the body, right? The capacity to
Mm,
actually listen enough, both to oneself and to like the spirit of the moment. And I think if let's say men are in their head a lot or trying to figure it out too much, or like often disembodied as a lot of men are these days, that you miss that ability to track actually the subtle layers of the ritual or what may try to orient us during our time
hmm.
together and what particular revelatory insight or experience may be there for you. So I see what you're
Hmm.
doing is really like equipping men with that capacity to attune both to themselves, each other, and to the spirit of the gathering itself.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, it's a dance, and it's it's so funny because it's so hard to like explain that quality to it, but it's like, what's the ROI on it? Like, what are we gonna get from it? And it's just like you got to be there to see. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's like each of us like can decide if we're willing to meet that sacred unknown or not. Like, it's within and moving through all of us, and it's always present. But can we cut through the static that we're producing in this world or we're responding to? Like we're attuning to the static, and then it's like that becomes all that we can see. But through the body, through the breath, through attuning to one another that are uh, grounded in some sort of practice, we can kind of be streamlined into this greater uh, ritualistic or intelligent space that
Mm,
isn't so far away. It's not this far off thing. It's literally just like right here at all times. And it's
mm,
playing hide and seek with us a lot. And a lot of the times we're just like running away from it and acting like it's not there. It's like it's always there. It's like
mm,
what are we not or what illusion or distortion are we upholding as truth
mm, mhm,
instead of the all?
mm. Beautiful. Well, I mean, I feel stirred and excited already. And I'd also just love to ask you more about your own journey with masculinity, actually, and how
Hmm.
that's been for you. How have you tried to navigate just, what you're supposed to be or living into? And why, secondarily, really, like, why do you feel this kind of inquiry and gathering with men now is actually so important?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, it's interesting, like with not having it modeled for me at all. Like my relationship to my father was never really established. He never like claimed me as his son, even though he was like in proximity. It's like I know who he is, but like I don't know his heart.
Mm,
So just not having it modeled for me allowed me to kind of project it onto others that were kind of like unworthy of even having attention. It was just like, oh, it should be like that. And just finding uh, broken men to be my mentors, even though it was like a silent agreement that I was just like, hey, like I don't have it clearly, or I'm not worthy clearly. So can you lead me, whether that's like friends or people that were a little bit older than me and just not in a position to guide a young man. But it was a habit of me like giving over my power and my knowingness and not having an established sense of self-trust because nobody ever affirmed anything that I've ever brought into the world. Like nobody, like I
mm,
would bring it into the world and it was always just like disregarded, just like, no, it's not it, even though I felt the most true. So I stopped even trying like sharing.
mm,
So it's been a very non-linear, I guess, like non-linear, but just like, yeah, I'm just figuring it out as I go. Um, and I think there's this level of like, oh, I get to decide like what it means to me. Like at the end of the
mm,
day, it's like I get to choose like what does it mean to be a man in my own life,
mm,
and I get to exemplify that no matter if it's being reaffirmed. And I'm grateful now. I'm 37 years old now that like I have men in my life that are mirrors to what I'm that can see and understand like what I'm imparting into the world and sharing from me into the world that see it and can receive it and we can exchange with it. I think largely a lot of my time had been spent like seeking validation, and
mm,
now I'm in this beautiful place where it's like I'm getting validated, but I don't need it at the same time.
mm,
It's taken a lot of different it's taken a long way just to get to that point of just like even as an artist like not questioning like my artistry or like my heart, because at the end of the day it's like I don't know uh how someone can perceive anything. Like I don't know, everyone's seeing different things. Like we hold up a green apple right now, some people are seeing one certain shade, other people are seeing another shade, some people don't even see the apple, some people are seeing an orange. Like the spectrum of human consciousness is infinite. And finally letting go of like trying to gain consensus on me as an ever-changing being and trying to create consensus across the spectrum is a fool's errand uh, that I finally recognized. I was like, oh, wait, I don't need to do anything for anybody. Like I need to define these terms, this one life for myself. And
mm,
I feel like that was like the birth of masculinity within me of like, oh, I'm a creative like being. Like I get to choose like what I want to create, inspired by devotion, inspired by the union with creator. And that's
mm,
the only thing that I need to be beholden to is being true to this creative life force.
mm. Thank you for that. It reminds me of a phrase that Miguel Rivera, who's one of the longtime holders of the Minnesota Men's Conference, which is, of course,
Hmm.
yeah, the precursor to our conference. I was able to interview Miguel when I visited a year and a half ago. Miguel's also coming. We've invited him alongside Walton Stanley, two of the elders from Minnesota, to join us at Cascadia. But Miguel spoke about how, in his own upbringing, he also didn't have a sort of direct relationship to his father, and the way he phrased it was something like he had to steal a little bit of fatherhood from the other friends' fathers that he
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
and just
Yeah.
reminded me of that as you shared.
Most definitely. Yeah, I'll add to that like some of my friends, like my dear friend Patrick Celine, who is a breathwave facilitator. Like I see like I'm like, oh, like he's a dear friend, but then there's also aspects of him fathering me just in proximity in our relationship, just like care, touch. And I have another friend, Ryan. I'm like, oh wait, like they're giving me like they're listening to me like I needed to be listened to, like seeing me as valuable and patient and yeah, just unconditional. I'm like, oh, like this is the thing that I needed when I was 7 years old that I never got, and I'm getting it in abundance now. And not from all relationships, but there's certain ones that really have like what I need, and it's like this kind of this like unconditional acceptance, but then just like a deep, deep well. It's like, yo, like we gotta hold a lot when it comes to being able to even feel seen and heard. Um,
Hmm.
like we need some dynamic individuals, at least just knowing what each of us needs.
Hmm.
Like oh, I'm not going to suffice just talking about how LeBron is going to do on the Philadelphia 76ers. Like I went to a birthday party the other day and I was overhearing these conversations about like I'm just like, oh yeah, like that love y'all, but like this isn't that. Like I can have certain friends on this level right here, and then it's like for me to feel connected and deeply nourished, like we gotta jump off the deep end and swim in the abyss for breakfast.
It strikes me as well. One, they talk about this idea of a male loneliness epidemic, right? A lot of men don't
Hmm.
have close friends, or if they do have friends or acquaintances, work buddies, they don't know how to go deeper, even if they long for it. All right, that's what I find when I speak to men. If they're like, it's just there's a term shared consumption, which can be the case. It's like go grab a beer, watch a game, that kind of thing, and can stay
Hmm.
surface and friendly enough. But I think a lot of men, yeah, crave a deeper soul connection with other men, and they don't quite
Hmm.
know how to find it or where those men are. And I think the power of gathering in this way, like you said, is to find those connections, to surround yourself with other good men on the path, committed to self-awareness, soul work, and really kind of lifting up what is ours to do in these times.
Hmm.
And just the value of being around men like that to inspire, a man if he's feeling, if he doesn't know what his gifts are quite as clearly, and to have other men to be able to reflect that, to elevate those, the highest qualities in him, as he might do for another man, is so much a
Hmm.
part of the value as well, I think, in gathering in this moment.
Yeah, most definitely. Hmm.
Mhm. Well, I wonder now, as we wind this brief but rich conversation down, anything you want to leave the listener with as we are heading just over a week again from this recording into the first Cascadia Men's Conference?
Yeah, I think it's always just establish like what your personal practice is and allowing it to be malleable. Um, Certain things fall away over time and it's completely okay. But I think it's just establishing that baseline relationship to solitude and like an honest observation of like what is actually here within each of us in our process. Because uh, the path evolves and changes over time, and then new contents come on online and new practices come online. But that's just essentially like the relationship is just like, yo, like we got to devote ourselves even more deeply to ourselves, and then we will magnetize or attract the types of relationships that mirror the level of devotion that we have to ourself. That uh, reflective reality or mirror quality of the universe or of life is just so apparent. So, yeah, just have some mindfulness about how we're spending our time and energy and the invitations that we accept, and know that there's a lot of power in discernment and saying no to certain invitations, like everything that comes up onto the screen of life you don't it's not necessarily yours. A lot of it is just a test to see. It's like, all right, is he gonna go down the path of his lower nature or judgment or overconsumption, or is he going to go the path towards awakening into seeing all of this as one thing, as wholeness? So yeah,
Mhm.
establish a practice, sit and meditate, and go out dancing. You must go out dancing. You got to move the body.
Mm. Good medicine. And certainly a number of these things we're going to get up to in our gathering very
Oh yeah.
soon. And so, again, men, if you're listening in, you're curious enough, this feels like a yes to you, check it out, cascadiamensconference.com. Tickets still available. And Aaron, once again, thank you so much for this rich conversation and looking forward to gathering with you in person very soon in the Squamish Valley.
Thank you so much, Ian, for having me on. I look forward to Cascadia Men's Conference, Volume 1.